That's right. It is orange and blue today. We are live at this convention center, right? In
Indiana
Indianapolis.
Convention Center is where we are, yes.
Okay, that's where we're at. We did orange and blue today earlier. You watched that. We talked about Sean Payton, his comments, quarterbacks. There's more than just quarterbacks, but still, that's kind of the talk with George Paton as well. And we'll have some clips for you. They're up on our YouTube channel right now of George Paton. But I thought it was interesting where Payton seemed a little bit timid, Mace. I may be overstating it, but when he talked about there's so many mistakes made, like you got to be really careful because in the first round, there's so many mistakes made with quarterbacks. I was like, oh, okay, George, you still need to take a quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, do we want to talk about second round mistakes, third round mistakes?
Right.
They're less consequential
Yes.
in terms of draft capital,
Yes.
but the hit rate is still lower the farther you get in the draft, and the failure rate is higher
Right.
the farther you get into the draft. Yeah, this is really interesting. So let's think back of George Paton's time working for the Minnesota Vikings, mainly as the number 2 with Rick Spielman.
Right.
in
Are you
charge.
thinking Christian Ponder? I mean, there's a first round mistake that team made with Rick Spielman and George Paton on staff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Teddy Bridgewater.
I don't see Teddy as a mistake.
I don't see it.
His leg collapsed.
That
Everybody.
yeah, he was literally airlifted
Yes. Almost.
off the practice field
Right.
with a horrific leg injury from which he probably never was completely the same,
No.
but he wasn't really functional on that leg for 2 years from a football perspective.
Right.
And
No, Teddy was a good quarterback.
yes. So I don't regard, and that was at the end. That was pick 32, trading back in to round 1.
Yeah.
So I don't think that was a failure. And then, before that, remember they went too far for a bit.
Right.
They had the late Travaris Jackson. It's weird to say the late in front of Travaris Jackson,
Right.
who, by the way, was Russell Wilson's backup for Super Bowl 48.
That's right. Correct.
Can you tell we're lower key?
Low key.
This is definitely
orange and blue.
We're calling it. This is definitely, even though it's light outside.
It's not yet after dark.
As we record it, I feel like we have been going at it today for a while. That it does have that after dark vibe.
It's nice to just kind of brain dump a little bit and talk about these things. But you and I hadn't talked about that yet. Like I thought George seemed a little, not necessarily nervous, but it's like, oh, okay, we know there's mistakes, dude, but you have to take a quarterback. You have to get this right.
Yes. And here's the thing. George can basically let Sean take the lead on this.
Right.
Now, we alluded to this on the first OBT earlier today, that Sean believes that their process will allow them to get this right. There's a lot of confidence. I would even say maybe even crossing over to bravado
Okay.
in terms of Sean Payton's belief that they can evaluate the quarterback properly and get the right quarterback.
Right.
And he spoke first, just like Sean Payton spoke first last month, because it was Sean Payton, George Paton, and then Greg Penner. It was Sean Payton and then George Paton today. It was Sean Payton and then George Paton following last year at the Combine. We certainly have a little bit of a pattern here.
Yes. And Sean went for twice as long as George.
Yes.
19 minutes compared to 10 minutes.
Sean could have kept going, too.
They're like, Sean, we got to cut you off, buddy.
Basically, yeah.
He loves holding court.
He loves, yeah, he does.
He loves talking ball.
I think it's interesting to kind of look at Sean, and sometimes, he'll do it just depends. It's got to be the right moment. Like a Monday morning coming back from a bye week at 9 a.m. on a conference call, Sean wants none of that. None of that.
Right.
Answering questions from a variety of media here, and I'll say respectfully, some of the questions were not really germane.
Usually you get that at the
Like,
combine, right?
because it's definitely more national. Like, I don't really care what he thought of Bryce Young last year.
That was an odd question. I'll be honest. I thought it was leading towards like trading up from 1, and the guy at 2 was better. And then this year people want to trade up to 1, but George Paton was like, you know, it's going to be difficult to really trade up to 1. And then whoever's asking the question is like top 3. Okay, we get it, guy. We understand, but it's like, well, how far the Broncos have to move up if in fact they do target a Drake Maye
Okay.
and JJ McCarthy?
So let's go with this. Like the response when he was asked what it would take to move to the first 3 picks in the draft, he said, I think you'd really have to love someone to move up to the number 1 pick. I don't know if we have the draft capital to do that, but yeah, everything's up. We're open for anything, but it would be hard to move up to number 1 realistically, okay? A few moments later, he's asked about a potential trade down. Quote, yeah, it's easier to trade down with where we're at number 12. You know, it just depends on who's there. We feel like there's going to be 12 to 15 players that we have high grades on. So where we're picking, it's going to be very valuable if we want to move down. I mean, I don't want to put words in George Paton's mouth, thoughts in his brain. He sounded very much like he had more enthusiasm for trading down than up.
Yes.
Which, okay, that's part of his nature. And the interesting dynamic of part of the Paton dynamic here is George Paton's instinct is the more darts theory. Trade down, get more picks. And then you have in his mind, you have a better chance of finding contributors. Sean Payton takes the exact opposite philosophy.
Yes.
It's, I want a specific prospect. I'm willing to sacrifice draft capital to get there.
Get my guy.
We've already seen that in his first draft under the employ of the Broncos when they traded up for Riley Moss.
Yes.
Okay.
Who had better work?
Yes.
This had better work.
Well, you hope it works better than the original Death Star did. I mean, this had better work.
Right.
The Death Star and the gambit of putting the homing beacon on the
tracer
Falcon.
The Falcon, right.
And
to go to Yavin, one of the moons of Yavin.
Yavin 4.
Yavin 4.
Inviting an attack.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't work. How many people were on the Death Star, by the way? What was the Death Star death toll?
I know. I'll go clerks on you. Think about just the regular workers on the Death Star.
Oh, and the third one, yes.
Yeah.
But because you had like contractors. Like
Yes.
that's a great point.
Yes.
Now, in the first one, oh, by the way, I just looked this up. 1,565,231 people died on Death Star 1.0, split between stormtroopers, Imperial garrisons, and passengers.
Imagine your layovers at the Death Star, and it just happens to get blown up. Some farm boy from Tatooine is there.
Wait, why? It's moving. It's not like it's a port in one place. It's moving throughout the galaxy. I mean, the Death Star had hyperspace capabilities, did it not?
Wonder if they had like vacation packages for the Death Star. You know what I mean?
Oh, gosh.
Maybe.
Did I ever tell you that when I was in college, I had a dream that I was on the Death Star? And it was... Okay. So anyway, we very much threw an After Dark.
We went off the rails quick in this one.
All right.
It's fine.
So on the Death Star, I'm in my dream, I'm sitting on a bench. It's like on the like as if like there's areas on the surface of the Death Star where you can like look off into the cosmos. And so I'm sitting on a bench, and then I get up and I walk past a couple that's on a bench, and they're in full makeout mode. And I just glance, and the guy, it's a heterosexual couple, male, female. The male says, "What the bleep are you looking at?" I'm like, "Nothing." And then I go inside. It's like a sliding door. I feel like I'm walking into an airport, right? And inside, it's like an airport terminal. Mm-hmm. And there's a restaurant. And on a restaurant, I see a television that, for some reason, even though Sam Wyche never coached the Jacksonville Jaguars, has the late Sam Wyche, the former Cincinnati and Tampa Bay head coach.
Of course, yeah.
as the guest of honor at a Jacksonville Jaguars kickoff luncheon. So anyway,
This is very odd.
This is a dream I had.
Okay.
And the reason I remember it so well is about a week later, in the college I was at, they had a dream analyst come in. I'm like, oh, I'll check this out.
Perfect timing.
Okay. And I brought this dream to the dream analyst. And he said, wow, that's messed up.
Wow, you're messed up.
He said something stronger than messed up.
Like Office Space.
Yes. Yeah. Like,
so every day
I don't know what
is
to
the
make
worst
of
day
that.
of your life. Well, that's messed up. I wonder what George Paton dreams about. Does he dream about having a different job? I don't know. It's just
he dreams about trading down and having like 20 draft picks on day 4.
Right.
But here's the other, or day 3, pardon me. But here's another thing.
Your talent's not going to be there this year.
Well, he said that they have not set their board yet, horizontally and vertically. So he was not in a position to answer that. I would offer this. When George Paton speaks at the league meeting next month in Orlando, because our next time to chat with George Paton will probably be in about 4 weeks' time.
Okay, we'll be in Orlando for the owners' meeting.
Yeah, he'll do a session with local media down there, local Denver media down there. I think it'll be worth asking. I think that's worth a follow-up, saying, okay, you said you hadn't set the board horizontally and vertically. Where does it stand?
Right.
Is it as weak on day 3 as a lot of people believe because of how many prospects chose to go back to school, partially because of the transfer portal, partially because you can make some serious bank in NIL money?
Yes. Yeah.
And partially because there's still that extra year of eligibility because of COVID. I think we're coming to the end of the COVID year having an impact on the draft class, but we've got this one cycle to get through before it normalizes again.
Yeah, we'll see what normalizes for the Denver Broncos. But George Paton at the podium with quite a few things to say. Mm-hmm. He talked about trading up and how trading up to 1 may not have the assets to do that. And in the same breath, basically, because his answers, were like 28 seconds and, 35 seconds. Like, he didn't answer for too long. And that's why his press conference was just a little shade over 10 minutes. One of the interesting things he said about Pat Surtain is like, one of the easiest things we'll do is figure out how to keep Pat Surtain around. I'm paraphrasing, yes. But that's what George Paton said about Surtain, while also talking about they might not have the capital to move up, meaning they're not getting rid of Surtain to move up.
Not a slam dunk, but pretty close is how he responded to that. Jeff Legwold of ESPN.com asked the question on that. So you alluded to this earlier. I want to go back for a moment here.
Okay. We're in after dark mode, baby.
Yeah.
We go anywhere.
More mistakes. So the more mistakes thing from George Paton regarding quarterback. It was set up by a question that asked, Sean Payton seems to be embracing the idea of finding a franchise QB. And he said, yeah, it's the most important position in sports, so it's important. Whether it's from within, that's why this is taking a long time. Within, what does that mean? Bring Russ back?
Right.
Yeah, but that's... The hype video for Russell Wilson is out there, okay? No longer an anonymous donor. The ship is sailing, okay?
I really want to stay with Denver, and then puts out a hype video. Like, Russ, come on, man.
The thing that if he wanted to stay with Denver, you wouldn't put out a hype video because that's what Sean Payton said he doesn't want to see, right?
Yeah.
So actually, I think that may explain sort of some of the responses I've seen over the last couple of days from Broncos fans to Russell Wilson, things he said, things he's posted. I feel like there's been kind of a turn of, okay, the breakup has happened, screw you.
Broncos
almost.
country, for the most part, has moved on.
Moved on down the road.
Yeah.
To Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy, Jaden Daniels, Drake Maye, Caleb Williams, even though Caleb Williams is not coming. By the way, I don't know if you heard Mark Schlereth of on the radio side of for 104.3 The Fan, but also of NFL and Fox. He shredded Drake Maye this morning.
Okay.
That was his tape study.
All right.
Say he'd rather bring Drew Lock back.
Wow. Okay.
Well,
Maye is
that's a spicy
falling, but to me, he's falling to like 7.
And here's the
Is
thing.
that really falling?
If we're making the Drew Lock comp, I would say watch Drew Lock and Drake Maye in college. And oh, by the way, Drake, a 2-year starter, Drew Lock, 4. Okay?
Big difference.
And neither one of them running offenses conceptually that provided for an easy transition to the NFL. There's a projection with both of them. So I think about that, and I think about how I watched a lot of Drew Lock and I watched a lot of Drake Maye. Based on their college film, I would much rather have Drake Maye. With Drew, at least, okay, can he run a Shanahan McVay type scheme? Can he do play fake boot action? Yeah, he can. Probably the thing he does better than anything else.
You know who is most like Drew Lock in this class is Bo Nix. Like in terms of just offense that he was asked to run, Nix does not have the cannon that Locke had.
Yeah, Drew.
Locke was a 2nd-round pick.
Drew, when Drew was at Mizzou, he became too reliant upon that cannon to bail him out, I thought.
Arm arrogance is what scouts call it.
Yes.
Definitely had that.
Yeah.
Well,
but yeah, so that was interesting, but it also, with someone like Stink making those comments, remember, he talks to a lot of coaches. Like that's part of his thing.
Yeah. And those guys like Stink, and I've always said this, Mace, like we have the blessing of getting to talk to these former pros and Hall of Fame players, stuff like that. Those guys see it fast. It doesn't mean they're right all the time, but someone who studies tape in the way that Mark Schlereth studies tape, he sees it fast. He may not have watched much of Drake Maye before this, but the fact that he watched and he didn't like what he saw, that's not him hyping things just to say hype or him to be clickbait, controversy.
Well, I think the Drew Lock comment might have been a little
he's ribbing a little bit.
Yes.
Stink likes to do that. But in terms of film study, I trust what Stink sees. I have my own opinions.
He said he went by 1 game. And that's where, I think, okay, I'd like, and I'm sure we can talk with Stink about this, like, what's the game? Because, was this year as good as the previous year for Drake Maye? No. Phil Longo, the offensive coordinator, left for the University of Wisconsin.
Right.
I can argue at least last year that move did not work out for either Drake Maye or Phil Longo. Because Wisconsin's offense at times was awful. we're talking Mizzou, North Carolina, Wisconsin. It's like the programs that I probably know them and South Florida, the 4 programs I probably know the most about.
Okay.
Just because it's kind of stepping through portions of my life, right? So it's interesting. Now, Drake Maye is not going to have a Sam Howell-like fall to talk about another North Carolina quarterback.
No.
Sam Howell. Sam Howell is interesting because
Howell has entered the conversation.
Well, Washington's going to take a quarterback, right? It's every indication is that Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, number 2 overall, taking a quarterback. That means someone like Sam Howell might be available via trade, and
wouldn't cost you a whole lot.
No. And I did some digging because I part of, again, we're on brain dump mode, right?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Great.
So one of the things that goes on here at the Combine, to kind of give you a little inside baseball type stuff, is the Pro Football Writers of America has a service that in which a lot of us writers take part.
Contribute.
Yeah, we do transcripts. Like I did the transcript of George Paton today. I'm doing the transcript of Fabian Lovett from Florida State on Wednesday.
That's your guy. You love
Yes,
him.
I love that. Love that dude. Broncos need a nasty run defender who can occupy multiple blockers and crash through. And this is the dude. We saw it. We saw it at the Shrine.
I synced it.
Yeah. Anyway, so you sign up to transcribe interviews and like you put it out there on you send it in email, and then there's a website
Shared
we can
server,
all go and
right.
we can get the transcripts.
Right.
So I realized that 2 years earlier, I had done Sam Howell.
Interesting.
I am assigned to do Drake Maye, by the way, on Friday.
Okay.
And one of my assignments this week 2 years ago was Sam Howell, North Carolina. And anyway, so I look back at the Howell transcript.
You just happen to stumble across the Howell transcript.
Did
you forget? Like you totally
I
forgot?
was trying to. I was having a brainwave. I'm like, did I do how? Because when I realized I'm doing Drake Maye, I'm like, did I do Howell 2 years ago? And I went back and, because the Broncos hadn't traded for Russell Wilson when we came here to the Combine.
Yeah.
So I figured I'd taken a quarterback, and I did. I took Sam Howell. And anyhow, so I look back at that transcript, and I see a question asked about the quarterback that he modeled himself after growing up.
Drum roll, please.
Drew Brees. That was Sam Howell's answer.
Mm-hmm.
Drew Brees.
Yeah. And remember Sam Howell, not the year he came out, but the year before that, because of Baker Mayfield, there was a talk that Howell would be the #1 pick. He had one more year left in college, and then that year, without Javonte,
without Michael Carter,
that year went by
also
the wayside.
Receivers. Yeah, they lost some receivers as well. And also, now if you're concerned about one thing with Sam Howell, you're concerned about the sack rate. Mm-hmm. You're concerned about him trying to stretch plays out.
And if you look at the Commanders last year, their offensive line was garbage.
Okay, and that again, not all sacks are created equal. Not all sack rates are created equal.
Yep.
Washington's offensive line was not very good.
Truly garbage.
Denver's offensive line, again, 8th in pass block win rate. We've brought that up time and again.
Yes.
So
they're not as bad as people think they are.
A greater percentage of sacks in Washington were offensive line / blocking scheme culpability compared to in Denver.
Now, is this cause or effect? Because I gave you a number today that
Yes.
Sam Howell was the 24th ranked quarterback when it came to play action passing. I believe it was 54 attempts on the season.
Because Eric Bieniemy did not want to do play action.
Now,
and
that
play
goes
action
to-
is a young quarterback's best friend.
Exactly. You
Right?
get the commitment of the defense to come up against the run. You play action fake. We all know it. We know the Shanahan scheme. And Bieniemy, for whatever reason, didn't help out Howell. So the offensive line was garbage. And yeah, EB, you didn't do your quarterback any favors by not using play action.
So, like, when you look at, if you're talking about the Broncos wanting a bridge quarterback who has upside, and I think that's, look, we talked about Sam Darnold, right? We've, talked about Mac Jones. I think neither of us are overly enthusiastic about Mac Jones.
No.
Here's the advantage of a young quarterback with upside being the bridge, okay? You give yourself 2 arrows in the quiver, not just one. I can get behind the idea of if you're trying to find the next Baker Mayfield, right? Young, still has some upside, maybe was in a bad situation before, had some starting experience. I can get behind and again, I'm reticent on Mac Jones, but I can still get behind Mac Jones if there's a first round pick. Mac Jones and JJ McCarthy, right? Sam Howell and JJ McCarthy.
Howell and McCarthy.
Sam
sounds a lot
Darnold and
better.
JJ McCarthy. You just kind of go down the list of quarterbacks who have some upside, right? I can embrace that.
I could embrace Howell starting for a year and then McCarthy taking over after that. Or McCarthy maybe playing at the end of the year, where McCarthy comes in December and you put Howell on the bench because he has served his purpose.
And oh, by the way, Maybe you bring in a Sam Howell, he does really well in the offense, and McCarthy develops well, and you have a good problem.
Mm-hmm.
You have a
Always.
surplus.
Yes.
It's weird. Okay, it's weird to talk in those terms now, and you may say I'm a dreamer. Well, I'm not the only one. I hope one day you'll join us and the world can live as one. Okay? Yeah, I'm a dreamer. And it's weird to say that today when the Broncos are moving on from Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
And they've had this quarterback carousel and so much disappointment. We could be sitting here. We're not here in Indianapolis, but you and I could be sitting somewhere in 10 months saying, wow, they actually have a surplus at quarterback.
Things change pretty quickly.
Wouldn't that be like, I think more so than the win-loss total, if you were talking about a quarterback surplus, that would be like the single best development you could have from this season.
Because guess how you get assets back? By having a quarterback that you can trade.
Then all of a
move
sudden,
on to JJ.
Yeah, you get Matt, you rehabilitate, going to do the old, it was QB rehab. John Elway talked about with Brock Osweiler in 17, right?
Yeah.
Same sort of concept. It's a Sam Howell, it's a Mac Jones, it's a Sam Darnold, and you bring them in and you get them right, and then they end up having value. I mean, maybe even Drew Locke.
What a turnaround. What a turnaround that would be. Well, Mace, we could do an OBT3 today, but we actually have other things to do.
Yeah.
So
This one went a little long. I'm sorry.
no, that's fine.
I kind of got going today.
No, that's good.
I am circling around the cul-de-sac.
Well, also,
thoughts.
I would say this, because we do what the YouTube algorithm tells us to do, Mace. But
Like,
if you
comment,
guys like
share,
these,
subscribe.
if you guys like these longer form shows, and by long I mean we're at 26 minutes. So if we go 30 minutes, an hour on a video show, that's OBT2. The regular OBT will still be a tight 20 minutes, information, opinions, and energy that we always bring every day. OBT is a BFT. But if you like it, tell us in the comments. You like this longer stuff, laid back, I'll take my shirt off.
You saw Boogie Nights, right?
Of course.
You remember when Burt Reynolds' character, talking about the sound from the speakers, says he wants mellow.
There's not much from that movie we can quote.
Quote that.
The Sister Christian scene, though, all time. Polino?
Alfred Molina.
Molino.
Alfred Molina.
Molina.
Yeah, yes.
Awesome. Incredible scene. Just that scene alone.
Yes.
We're motoring, Mace.
What's your price for flight? Finding Mr. Right.
Well, the Broncos are
Be all right tonight.
People like when you sing songs. Oh, that's a wrap.
We're closing on that.
Yeah, we're closing on that. Unless you got something else. I mean, I know, again, we have plenty of defensive stuff to talk about, too. It's more than just QBs. But
we'd like to, we're going to talk to defensive linemen, front seven. Tomorrow we'll talk a little about Drew Sanders as well, because
he might have a position change.
I asked George Paton about Drew Sanders today.
So listen tomorrow, watch tomorrow. We'll be talking about that. But let's do the YouTube things, Mace, to help us out. Please
like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you never miss a vid. That's pretty good.
In person, we can time it up.
Yeah, I know. It's a little bit off when we're remote.
We know the cadence.
Yeah.
We know the cadence. Windshield
That's twice
wipers,
today.
Slapping up the tempo.
Yeah, so now we got them going opposite.
Keeping perfect rhythm with the song on the radio. I told you I'd go Eddie Rabbit. Anyway.
Well, speaking of Eddie Rabbit, we're looking at a rainy overnight tonight here in Indianapolis.
I love a rainy night. He's Mace. I'm Cecil. Thanks, everybody. Stay tuned and stay frosty.